Wow, my hair is extra fluffy today. This should be illegal. Hello and welcome to my first crafter's log of 2023. Allow me to summarise the current state of affairs. There is so much non-craft stuff going on right now, and this video is going to be kind of all over the place. But never fear, there's still plenty of pretty projects to look at, so happy times! If you're new here today, hello, my name is Michelle and I love to do all of the crafts, but especially the stitchy ones. On this channel you'll find mostly cross-stitch, yarn crafts and occasional sewing, in the form of tutorials, project vlogs and a not insignificant amount of enabling. Everybody else, welcome back, and I hope you are up for some really underwhelming updates. Yeah! So, where to start? Last crafter's log, which I think was back in November, I was once again full of extravagant plans. I was going to get started on some last minute Christmas crafting, I was going to finish projects by the new year, blah blah blah, yeah, none of that happened. Long story short, by the time our Christmas break rolled around in December, I think my mental situation was kind of hanging by a thread. I was quiet on social media, my videos were few and far between, and my crafting mojo was definitely a casualty of the situation. All I wanted was to curl up under my electric blanket and drink hot chocolate and play video games and read a good book. So you know what? That is exactly what I did for like 3 whole weeks over Christmas and New Year. I skipped the yearly tradition of crafting last minute Christmas presents, I scrapped plans for a 2022 recap video, and I just let myself chill. It was awesome. Not sure why I'm telling you all of this. I guess once a hobby becomes a part of our identity to the point where we're naming ourselves after it on social media, you can start to get that little bit of guilt over not doing it enough. But that's stupid, and sometimes we could all do with the reminder that hiding under a blanket with a cup of tea and a good book is a valid life choice. Now, of course, I didn't go completely craft-free, that just wouldn't be like me at all. You've already seen the Christmas shirt that I made for Dave, and the matching dress I made for myself from that same fabric. These were my big thing in the first week of the holidays. No real time pressure because I'd already made a muslin and knew what I was doing, and also because I hadn't added a load of other last minute projects like I usually do at that time of year. I'd given myself so long to complete the 2 projects that whenever I ran into trouble I could actually take a step back, maybe have a bit of a break and come back to it fresh the next day, and that was a game changer. This is how sewing should be. No wonder I'm always so stressed. Anyway, you've seen all about that shirt in my recent video summing up all of the lessons that I learned during the process. But you only really got that one glimpse of my matching dress, and Lindsay from Retro Craft Dreams has been pestering me for a closer look, so here you go. This is the Magnolia dress from My Golden Thimble. It's really simple and quick to put together, but even so I did manage to have a few problems. One very much user error on my part when I somehow failed to trim one of the pattern pieces and I ended up with an extra 2 inches of fabric on the back piece of my dress. Easy solution though, I just cut right down the middle, trimmed that extra fabric off each side and sewed it back up. So this dress isn't supposed to have a seam down the centre back, but whatever. The second problem, or if we're talking chronologically, I guess it was the first problem, was an issue with the pattern itself. It comes as multiple PDFs, one for printing on US letter paper and another for printing on A4 paper, which is what the rest of the world uses because it makes way more sense. Unfortunately, almost all of the pattern pieces in the A4 file had the same label on them, so I had to cross-reference with the letter version to find out which piece was actually supposed to be which. Not a huge deal because again, this was a very simple pattern, so it was easy enough to work out. But still, not great. I did message the designer to let her know, but now it's been like 3 months or so without any response, so I honestly don't know if that's been fixed or not. Still, it is a very cute little dress. The pattern has tons of variations to choose from, the elastic waist was the perfect thing for Christmas Day, and of course it has pockets. I'll definitely be making at least one more of these at some point, possibly for our cruise later this year. It's just so easy to wear and so comfy to lounge around in, and that is what I look for in holiday clothes. I also think this would make a really cute playsuit if I can figure out how to turn that skirt section into shorts instead, but that might be a bit too advanced. I think I probably should have shortened the bodice a little bit because of my absurdly short waist situation, but I still think it's cute as is. Alright, so what else has been going on? I mentioned in my 2023 goals video that I wanted to get into macrame this year in a big way, and I was quite surprised by how many of you said that was also your plan this year. Katie of Katie Makes Stuff, who you may remember from that one time we both made giant pants, has already invested in a ton of macrame code because she never starts out sensible if she can possibly start out huge. But I'm just going to stick with the plan of completing this simple little kit that Dave got me for Christmas, and then I think we'll go from there. So I wanted to do a quick shout out here to the YouTube channel Simply Inspired. I actually discovered Sheena through Vero at first and had no idea she had such a big channel on here, but her creations are amazing and she does great tutorials. So for all of those who said you also want to try making some really fancy knots this year, consider that a strong recommendation. Now, for somebody with Stitcher in her alias, you might be wondering when I'm going to get round to talking about cross-stitch, and I suppose the answer to that is now. But don't get your hopes up. When we last caught up, I had 4 main works in progress, and now, however many weeks later it is, I have the exact same 4 works in progress. And in fact, some of them haven't even seen a single stitch. I have to admit, right, my gut instinct was to pencil in a hardcore cross-stitch weekend, get some progress on everything, and then film this video pretending I'd been really slowly working on all of them this whole time. But that would be a lie, and if I endeavour to be anything on this channel, it is brutally honest. So in that spirit, since my last update, I have only put stitches into Autumn Stories and the Steampunk World Map. Garden Cat has sat there looking at me mournfully without his whiskers, but let's face it, this is not a deepest darkest winter type of project. I had very limited motivation to stitch and none of it naturally flowed towards this project, so whatever. I did get it out the other day to assess the situation and I remembered how much I'd been enjoying stitching it, so I think I am going to start working on this again after the impending life event is out of the way. I'll try and get it done for summer, which gives me plenty of seasonally appropriate stitching time, but also crucially does not set an actual date for any of you to hold me to. The other project that saw no progress is the Peppermint Purple Sal 2022. This was basically because if I had the urge for black work, I knew I was supposed to be catching up on this one, and if you tell me I have to do something, well, now I'm not gonna do it. So any black work energy I may have had just went into the world map project instead, basically to be spiteful against myself. Yeah, I should probably work on that. Again though, now that I am actually getting back into the swing of crafting and the mojo is returning, I'm really excited to finish this one off. In no small part because it's quietly become a bit of a competition between me and Victoria here, but also, you know, it is pretty and I'm excited to have it up on the wall. I don't think I'll finish it soon enough that I'll be tempted to pick up this year's version of the Sal, but you never know. Weirder things have happened. Alright, so onto the ones that actually did see some progress. Steampunk World Map was my project of choice for this year's Super Bowl and Stitch. Of course, A, nobody ever joins in with Super Bowl and Stitch, so that's not really a thing, but I shall keep trying every year nonetheless. And also B, I got like 2 cogs done, because I was too busy watching the game and chatting on Discord and Mastodon. Still though, we are very, very nearly complete on Europe and Asia, which means that's only going to be about 1 year and 5 months behind when I said I'd be done with Europe and Asia. Not bad. So this pattern is literally just called Steampunk World Map, it's a very descriptive name, and it's from a shop called Circle Cross that I am kind of obsessed with. I'm stitching with the called for colours because the autumn vibes were kind of what drew me to this pattern in the first place. Although there are only 4 of them, so you could definitely switch them out for whatever you prefer. The fabric is 28 count DMC brand Ecru Even Weave, and it's super floppy to stitch on. But I only have the 1Q snap and I'm too lazy to keep taking my other project out of it, so I have stitched most of this in hand. I think it's resulted in the occasional slightly baggy cog, but once it's up on the wall, no one's ever gonna notice. I've promised myself once the map is finally finished off, I can buy this other pattern from the same designer as my first ever Discworld adjacent stitch, which is proving very motivational. And yes, before anyone comes at me, I know that is not actually a Discworld pattern, and I know there are officially licensed Discworld patterns. In fact, if you watch Mad Morty's channel, you've probably seen her husband David working on one of those for the last few months. But those patterns are big and scary, and blackwork is easy and shush. It'll go well with my Christmas haul this year of Sir Terry's biography, the travel version of Thud, and this necklace. Yeah, pretty big Discworld fan. Now, Autumn Stories is such a tricky one to show you, and I'm going to show you current progress in the Q-Snap, but I did also take a photo of it out that I'll show you in a moment. So I posted a photo of this one a few weeks ago on socials, confessing that I'd done absolutely nothing on it in quite some time. Since that post, I have actually done a ton, but I was really worried you might not be able to tell because the vast majority of it has been up in this part, and it is essentially ecru stitches on ecru fabric. But luckily I couldn't face recording this video last week, and in the intervening time I have managed to put in a lot of stitches down here, so now we have some nice progress to show. All's well that ends well. It's such a weird one because you think it would be boring to stitch ecru on ecru, but actually I really enjoy that part. It's just disappointing when I pick it up to take a progress photo and realise you can't really see any difference whatsoever. Still, we can't go around choosing all our projects depending on how photogenic they are for the internet. So I've been working on getting back to page completion down here. There are just a couple of colours to go in and among this part, but I think those colours are kitted up with another project at the moment and I'm too lazy to go get them, so that'll get done when it gets done. My plan, after trying out a few projects, is to go back to my cross-country but just across one pattern page at a time technique, instead of my more recent absolute nonsense Wild West approach, which you've seen the last couple of times. From Flosstubes I've seen recently, it seems like there's been a bit of an uptick in people discovering how awesome full coverage cross-stitch can be. I am way too slow a stitcher to take on multiple of those at once, but I have to admit, I want to. There are just so many amazing designs out there and not enough time to stitch them, and it makes me sad. Maybe once the madness of the first half of this year is over and done with, I will treat myself. This pattern in particular is charted by Pain-Free Crafts. They have all kinds of fantastic patterns from fantastic artists, and I'm already starting a shortlist for which one to pick up next. Although there might be a bit of a wait because the current estimated finish date for Autumn Stories is Tuesday the 24th of August, 2027. Still, since deciding to join in with the 100-day project, I have made some good progress on this and it's been seeing a lot of action, so maybe we can get that estimate down a little bit. We'll see. And just a note on that 100-day project for anyone unfamiliar. Once a year, artists and creatives of all kinds pledge to work on a particular project for 100 days in a row, just 5 to 10 minutes per day. Now, you might say when I'm too busy to even consistently make videos, this isn't the kind of thing I should be jumping into, but basically I wasn't making time to work on my usual rotation, and it was getting me down a bit. So I thought, 5-10 minutes a day? I can do that. I can do that almost every day. Whether I've been working on other projects that day or I've been too tired to really get stuck into anything, 5-10 minutes is nothing. So I set up a spreadsheet because, of course, and I nominated Autumn Stories as my cross-stitch project, so this is where I started off when the challenge started last week. I also nominated my Justina Jumper knitting project, which we'll talk about in a minute, because I wanted to have that bit of variety. I mean, full disclosure, we're only on about day 6, I think, and I have already missed one. But I've also made good progress on both projects, so isn't that the real goal here? The challenge runs all the way through Eurovision, my birthday, and etc, so I doubt that'll be the last day I miss, if we're honest. Very excited to see where I end up, though. Also, speaking of Eurovision, who are we liking this year? Estonia didn't have the greatest song selection, but they did pick my favourite. Latvia had a few that I would have been happy with, and they did pick one of those. But Finland, wow. Pretty much any of those songs would have been a contender, but the one that they chose is just miles ahead of the competition. I'm so excited. And not to mention, Australia are sending the act they probably should have sent last year. It's gonna be so good, and if you haven't been keeping up with events, well, don't worry, because you're probably gonna hear plenty about it from me. Alright, back on topic. So that is, sadly, all of my cross-stitch news. I do have a couple of projects about to be started, and one of them is just the nichest, nerdiest, most Reddit thing ever, but we'll talk about those next time when there's actually something to show you. In the meantime, Flosstube shoutouts. Who have I mentioned so far today? Mad Morty. I have shouted out Morty and her husband David a few times in the past, and honestly you probably watched them before you watched me. But just in case, if you like nonsense banter, British accents, terrible jokes, and of course a fair bit of cross-stitching, get thyself over to their channel. After you've finished watching this video, obviously. And while we're doing channels that I've shouted out before but not in quite a while, Amber at Rogue Mama Stitcher is always worth checking out. She stitches a ton of very cutesy patterns that are just like so not me at all. But she sells it. She's just such a lovely person who is lovely to listen to, and yeah, lovely is the word I would use to describe her Flosstube. Also, super prolific stitcher, like intimidatingly so. But lovely. I've also really been appreciating Heather at the 20-minute stitcher recently. Now, despite the name, I would say sometimes her floss tubes come in at 20 minutes or below, but quite often not so much. Still, it is a noble goal to aim for. There are plenty of people for whom I will sit and watch a whole hour-long video, but I was quite excited to find someone who tries to keep it a bit shorter. So if you're in that same boat and you struggle to keep up with the really long floss tubes, I think this is worth a look. All of those channels will be linked down in the description. Okay, now normally I do a knit and crochet section and then a miscellaneous other crafts section, but today's video is structureless and wild, so let's just continue as we are. Because let's be honest, most of what I'm working on at the moment is wedding stuff. So let's get the two non-wedding projects out of the way first. Project 1, the previously mentioned Justina jumper. This was cast on last autumn and I'd planned to have it done by Christmas, but it's in this gorgeous green wool mix Aran from Paintbox Yarns and I'm so excited for it to be done, but it just sort of slipped down the priority list until the last few days. Now that it is part of my 100-day project, we should start to see it moving along nicely again. So far, I've completed the bottom half of the body and split to knit the front and back panels separately. This is going to be the front, and I think it's close to where it needs to be before moving on to neckline shaping, but I need to measure and double check and whatnot. I have gone wildly off track in terms of needle size and tension, so I'm basically just winging it, which is difficult with such a loose, airy stitch pattern because you don't want it to end up too short, but there's also the risk that you'll make it too big, and once it's been washed and blocked, it'll be huge. Whatever, it'll be fine. And my new knitting project since last time is this rather uninspiring looking grey hat. This is a pattern name I can't pronounce by a designer who I also can't pronounce, so I'll put them up on screen right now. I cast this on New Year morning as we all sort of staggered back into wakefulness at a friend's house, so this is very much my welcome to 2023 project. Unfortunately, I'm not convinced I'm doing it right. I don't think it looks quite like it's supposed to be, but it's a little bit hard to tell. So I'm hoping once it's been blocked and everything's relaxed a little bit, it'll look a lot better. I don't know, we'll see. This grey yarn I'm using is just leftover Paintbox acrylic from the pocket shawl I made late last year, and I'm thinking I can probably get a pair of gloves out of it too. But they'll need to be done for next winter because I am definitely not making room for anything new right now. Because, yes, okay, I am getting married in not very long at all. And that's exciting to me, but probably not very exciting for you to keep hearing about. So I'm trying not to be that girl who never talks about anything else, but on the other hand, I am a crafter. There's no way I was going to let this opportunity pass by without making arguably way too much stuff myself. And that means not much time for non-wedding crafts. So if I don't tell you about this, I have nothing else to tell you about. So if you are not up for hearing about wedding things, which I totally understand and do not hold against you at all, this is probably the part of the video where you'll want to duck out. Thank you for watching, and I hope we'll see you back here soon. For the rest of you though, here's the current situation. Being an adventurous but ultimately unskilled sewist, I don't even know what that is. Alright, so it is a fairly invisible zipper. It only made sense for me to sew my own wedding dress.
Not.
Okay, it was probably a terrible idea, but we do have a plan to just buy a simple white dress from a shop at the very last minute if this all goes to pot, so it's fine. Now we are, 5 weeks out? Less than that? Oh my god. And I'm still working on the cotton bedsheet test dress. Here's a sneak peek, although very much censored because it's a little bit booby and I need to buy a more appropriate bra. This is the first dress I've made that is supposed to be a little bit more fitted at the waist, and I thought because the pattern that I've chosen has a raised waist as part of the design, it would be okay with my short waist situation. However, no, I'm too abnormal for that and I've still had to make quite a few adjustments. I have of course recorded the whole process in case I decide to make a video out of it, but I'm not sure if that'll be too much wedding content, so I'll leave that decision up to you. Wedding dress video, yeah or nay? After many fabric samples and eventually a spreadsheet to help me choose which one I wanted, the final fabrics did turn up last week and I'm super excited to get on with the real thing. At the same time though, it's definitely worth being 100% sure about my changes to the pattern on the test version first, so I'm happy that I've taken my time on that. I would say I'm quietly confident, surprisingly unstressed at this point, although that will probably change very quickly in the near future. Now, apart from the dress, I also wanted to bring other crafts into the day somewhere. I'm not really much of a flower person, but when I thought about it more, I realised I'm definitely going to need something to do with my awkward hands, and also it's nice to have things to hide behind in photos, so I have decided to try crocheting flowers for a bouquet. These are a few test ones I've done, some wonkier than others, but that's why I'm practicing. I know they look a bit weird on their own, but trust, there is a plan, okay? I will say a lot of people, even very passionate crafters, find that crochet flowers like this look a bit cheap and tacky and wouldn't want them themselves. But you know what? I am cheap and also kind of tacky, and on this occasion, I'm happy to own it. I'll link the specific pattern I used down in the description, but basically each flower is a green nubbin, a long scalloped line, and then a green bumpy circle, all attached together with floral wire. I think it's going to be a nice personal thing to have on the day, especially if Dave makes good on his promise to dust off his old crochet skills and give me a hand. Hint, David. Another thing I was thinking of making is something warm to wrap up in if the weather isn't great, which in April in northeast England is very likely. Unless it's absolutely pouring down on the day, we'll probably be outside quite a bit, and I don't want to be shivering and goosebumpy in photos, you know? I've kind of got my eye on this knitting pattern, which I know isn't very wedding-y, but it just speaks to me, and also I know how cold it gets where we're going, and also you might be able to tell I'm kind of past the part where I worry about whether I'm doing this correctly. The problem is I can't find any suitable yarn in a suitable colour for a suitable price, so I don't know if this one's going to happen. It is super chunky, so it would actually be a really quick knit, but I might just have to wait and see if there's time after I've done all the other things. Yeah, that sounds like something a sensible person would do. And finally then, I am also planning to make and decorate a small wedding cake. This list is probably giving some of you palpitations, but honestly we're doing everything so casual and so small, it's not as big a deal as it sounds. Honest. Plus, after the success of that Hobbit cake we made for my birthday last year, we're basically cake decorating geniuses now, and we own a lot of the tools, so I'd only need to buy ingredients. Seems like a no-brainer to me. Okay, I think that might actually be everything. Obviously, it's a very busy time at the moment, so I will apologise in advance and also retroactively for lack of videos, but I'm sure you understand. Is there anyone else out there who did their own wedding crafts? I want to see! Successes, fails, general encouragement, or outright skepticism of my plans very welcome down in the comments. I still feel like I've not really taken on too much, but people keep acting like I've definitely taken on too much, so not sure what to make of that really. Anyway, I'll let you go. Thank you for sticking with me through today's disjointed rambling. I'll be back soon with some more crafty nonsense, so in the meantime, have a brilliant rest of your day and keep making cool stuff.